What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Coach T-Mac. In today's video, we discuss championship preparation and how to cultivate sustained success within a program with former Ohio State Buckeye player and coach and current president of the Difference USA, Anthony Schlegel. If you want to catch these interviews live, I stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening, and sometimes Sunday. But make sure to like and subscribe to the channel to catch all my interview uploads. Now, roll that beautiful intro footage. It parts like the Red Sea. Nobody touches them.
No, it's like when you hear that you made the 105, it's like Christmas morning.
But if the ball comes in the B gap, I gotta make that play.
Right? So not everybody starts at ground zero equally.
Today's guest is one I'm extremely excited to talk with. Former Air Force, Ohio State, and NFL linebacker, former Ohio State strength and conditioning coach, current president of the Difference USA, and holder of 2 patents. Without further ado, let me go ahead and show y'all what the man looks like. This is Anthony Schlegel of the Difference USA. So that was my brief intro of holding some things that I think we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But if is there anything that you wanted to add, or what have you been up to? How are you filling your time during quarantine 2020?
Yeah, I mean, for one, we're good. I'm up here in Columbus, Ohio, and though I'm originally from Texas, played high school ball at DeSoto and Highland Park, and absolutely 100% a Texan. But that being said, I'd use this opportunity as a way to grow, right? I always talk about don't get through it, grow from it. So I've been utilizing this time. Not only have we been just absolutely slinging my product around, but just trying to enhance it, right? Or enhance other line extensions, or, just finding ways that I could add value to coaches and athletes. So, if you just are doing home projects all the time, like you're not maximizing yourself during this time. So, I just want to grow from it and add value as much as I possibly can. And just happy to be on with you, Travis.
Man, I'm excited to have you here. This is Roy Nebeker says Andy still squats 600 pounds. So I'll we won't make you prove that tonight, but I'm sure a lot of people would love to see a video on Twitter of that.
Squat 600 pounds like right this second. I could probably do a 550. I know I'm pulling probably about 625. I'm getting it back, but that's the thing. Like when you're running a business, there's certain things that kind of fall to the wayside, and a little bit of that has been the weight training aspect, but it's fun nevertheless.
Yeah, that's way more weight than I'm concerned with pulling or squatting at this point in my career. So, so you and I talked at the end of last week, and I do have one question before we jump into that. A guy his dad is a former Air Force graduate. Asked which head coach you played for at Air Force.
Coach DeBerry.
Gotcha, Coach DeBerry.
Yep. Good to have you on, Roy. I see you, my man.
Yes, sir. So, one thing that you and I talked about, at the end of last week when we discussed getting together, is how important preparation was, especially during your playing career. You had talked about just studying your opponent, scouting, and things of that nature. Can you just continue to expand on some of those details? Because I think that's something that, especially in today's day and age with the availability of technology and how easily, a kid can just turn on huddle and be like, oh, well, I watched 4 hours, right? But what are you doing in that 4 hours? Can you just expand and give a little bit more detail about what your preparation looked like during your playing career?
Well, I mean, Coach Meyer had a great quote when it came to preparation. He said this: preparation stops when the foot hits the ball, right? So, you don't want to be that guy that's throwing the helmet or slapping the turf. You got to maximize your time and how you prepare. And part of going into preparation starts with knowing yourself, right? And being very honest, transparent with who you are. Now, I was very blessed to, I played with AJ Hawk, number 5 overall pick. I played Bobby Carpenter. I believe he was the 22nd overall pick. I mean, I just had 2 absolute freaks to my right and left. And, then you have me, right? 6'1", 245, 250-pound linebacker from Texas. But the things that separated me, though I wasn't as fast as them or as athletic, I mean, I had great vision and anticipation, right? I mean, that was one of the things that, um, I always valued in myself. So with that, I actually did a Zoom with the Ohio State linebacker group with Bobby, and we were just discussing everything that went into our preparation, right? And so again, to me, all ball is pace, space, and angles. That's sports, right? But especially football. And if you look how the game has changed and offenses are spreading you out, right? It's pace, space, and angles. And so then I would take that, and everything that I did was predicated upon these four things: alignment, assignment, alerts, and adjustments. Right. So every time I watch ball, and I just talked to a local high school team here about this, right? Don't confuse activity with achievement. Just because my coach gives me, plays to watch in huddle, don't go through and watch plays and spend 40, 45 minutes watching huddle so you can be a box checker, right? It's what did I get out of those 45 minutes on huddle that not only add value to myself, but also adds value to my teammates and my coach. So every time I would go watch film, I watched it in the view of alignment, assignment, alerts, and adjustments. So I would take field 8, for example. Coach would give us a series. I say, hey, Coach Fick, you know, and the other thing too is I've been very, very blessed to have played for and coached with like some of the best ever, right? I mean, I played for Fisher DeBerry. I was recruited and hired by Jim Trussell. I coached for Urban Meyer. I was under Mickey Marotti at Ohio State. I mean, the lessons there are just unfathomable. But, I would go to Coach Fick at the time when I was playing and say, hey, listen, give me all the formations, down and distances that you would run field 8, right? Then I would go through those and I would say, based on down and distance, field position, etc., formation set, I would write up alignment, assignment, alerts, and adjustments. Period. Every single one. And I would draw out every single player. Now, I know that's very, very tedious, but again, I still keep a journal. Like, I like to write things down. But what it did was I also understood the weaknesses of the defense and the weaknesses of myself. So I could go back and say, okay, here we are. It's 3rd and 6. It's 3-by-1. They motion out, right? So there's a communication check. All right, I know they can only run one play to my right. Well, guess what? I'm not going to be a robot and play a 30 technique. I'm going to boss over, play a 50, take a step back because I know that they're trying to get first down. So they might want to run a yogi or a yogi and up, and I'm communicate that to my safety that's coming down. Right? Hey, you got me over the top. Great. I'm going to jump this yogi. But I can only do that if I understood the why and who else I have on my team that could help me on the back end. And also, I was like, if they did want to run a draw or something and I was out of position, I also had the autonomy to potentially give the D tackle in front of me a stun into the B gap so then I could go plug the C gap, right? One back, one gap. But it was all about that preparation of alignment, assignment, and alerts and adjustment because, again, defensively speaking, the offensive goal is to in my opinion, to make the defense communicate 3 times, right? Communication stifles us in all relationships, all walks of life. And the best defenses are the ones that communicate at a high level. The problem with today's generation, it's like they can talk on PlayStation or Xbox, but they have a hard time communicating on the field, right? But that's because they're afraid that they don't know and they don't want to be wrong, right? That comes with practice. So for us, it was always about, being able to communicate. What are those potential alerts? How do I make the adjustment really, really quickly, whether it's hand motions or audible, like auditory, and then we go out and execute at a high level, right? So to me, you have to be prepared for that, right? And as a linebacker, it's your responsibility to put your teammates in the best position possible. So I wanted to be the most prepared that I possibly could be.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing, and it's so easy, and I can kind of feel myself falling into like the farther away, younger generation of like, oh, these kids today type thing. But it's so easy to get lost in, oh, but there's film and I watch it, right? But are you watching plays or are you watching people? Are you watching highlights or are you watching technique? And it like you said, it's very tedious work, but that's what begins to separate the good from the great. And last week we actually had a conversation about when it comes to the athleticism versus scheme, and I always kind of relate it to a balance or a scale, right? You know, the guys that are just the superior athletes, they can get away with, you know, maybe limiting or not investing as much of mental exercise into the technique or the preparation from that standpoint. But guys that understand their limitations, like you said, know what their weaknesses are, you know, you use that scale to put the playing field back in your favor. And the great ones are the ones that acknowledge and accept that I do have these God-given physical abilities, but I don't rely on them. I still put in that mental exercise and that preparation, which eliminates any possibility of my opponent equalizing that scale.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, and the crazy thing is that's still something I'm doing today, but it's in business, right? I look at the alignment of my team of people that sell my product or my supply chain, right? I understand what we all have to do, you know, from an assignment. I have alerts, right? Like, what are the potential hangups? You know, is somebody able to make my pads? We're in a coronavirus, right? So there are certain things I have to bring in internally, and I have to make adjustments, right? It translates all lives or all aspects of our life, but that's where, you know, I think from a coach's point of view, coach's responsibility is to teach their kids how to watch film, right? So if I'm a linebacker and I'm keying through the guard to the back. Again, I don't know how they teach it anymore. I'm not in the game, but like, what am I actually looking at, right? Am I looking at their stance? Am I looking at the split, right? Am I looking at the depth of the running back? Like, what are those check marks as to, I'll put it this way. Can they see me on film?
100%. 100. No, they can hear you. They can hear you and see you.
I'll give you an example. So this is, you know, this is where is this? This is right where you guys are. This is Texas A&M, right? So Texas A&M, I mean, again, this is just me personally, but this is how I do business, which is very football-esque, right? So I go through, I create a folder, I make a quote, I get a PO, I create an invoice in QuickBooks, I print off an invoice, right? I have all these check marks as to how I do every single sale in my business. Well, that's how we got to teach kids how to understand how to go watch film, right? If we just expect them to go watch film, they're going to do the path of least resistance, right? So we have to build a structure as to, hey, here's what we're looking at as for in regards to watching film, right? If they are in bunch, why do they get in bunches on offense? To spread you out, right? To create different levels. So we're articulating that to them. And then we can also show them, hey, here are the down and distances that they like to run bunch out of, right? And then from there, what are my tips? Is the guy that's on the ball, is he looking inside, right? What's the depth of the running back? I got two receivers to the field. I got a wing back into the boundary. I got a running back at 7 yards depth. I got the outside tackle's foot is, you know, half a yard deeper than the other tackle. And you can see those things. Why is he doing that? To reach block me, right? To create space over on that side of the field for a run play, and it's 2nd and 2. So those are the things that we have to teach them the game. And it's so why, like, I get so frustrated with the Pop Warners in the junior highs. It's not about, yes, we want to win, and competition breeds excellence. But at the end of the day, we have to be teaching the fundamentals and the concepts of our great game to add value to our players, right? So that's something that I believe all coaches should do is if they don't know how to watch film, it is up to you to develop the standard operating procedure of how to watch film to maximize their time. Because then when you ask them a question, for them to communicate it to you so that they actually know it, just like they do in the classroom, they can understand. And then you can see the discrepancies from whether your point of view or how you're teaching it to them, right? I'm going to give you a quick story. I remember after we got the brakes beat off us by Clemson, like 31-0, I don't know, years ago. Coach Meyer made every coach change rooms in the Woody Hayes. And he did that because you get comfortable in the classroom in which you teach. But obviously something was missing. So he wanted to create friction within his coaching staff to make them articulate and teach differently to their student athletes, right? I mean, that's a different level of thinking. But it just goes to show like the importance of our ability to teach the game to our student athletes.
100%. And one thing you mentioned that, you know, in reference to your business, I just want to circle back to is, you know, as I begin to feel myself transition out of like that young coach phase of my career and kind of just into that, like, I'm a coach phase. Like you're not in the group that just came in or the group that's about to leave. You're just there. But one thing then that I've really tried to apply in not just the coaching world, but just holistically is the checklist. Oh my gosh. Like even yesterday developed a checklist and I told my buddy, I was like, I think I just saved my marriage before it ever happened. Right. Because they're so valuable and it allows you, you know, again, it sounds tedious. It sounds like something that, God, this is so monotonous, but it's preemptive. It's proactive, right? We're proactively coaching, not reactively coaching. The checklist or the process allows you to identify, wait, I missed something here. So now I haven't gone through the action and then had to relapse to fix it. I've prepared myself accordingly, and it's just like watching film, right? You said, you know, purchase order, this, that, when you're dealing with a customer. Well, what's my checklist when I watch film? When I watch an opponent, what am I looking for? Right. And those are things that I think that for young coaches, as someone that's beginning that transition out, we take those for granted, right? Well, it's obvious. Here's their best 3 players. Here's their best player on the first level. Here's their best player at the second level. Here's their best player at the third level. Obviously you can see that, right? But it's obvious to us because we've been around the game for 20 years. This kid's 16 years old. He's got 17 different social media apps on his phone that can pull his attention in about 4.5 seconds. So what are we doing from an explanation standpoint to dial that kid in, to make sure that he understands the process, to understand what his position checklist is as he prepares for the game?
Absolutely. That's it.
So with that being said, playing in a program like Ohio State, environment has to cultivate those expectations of preparation. What do you think from a preparation standpoint sets programs like the Buckeyes, the Alabamas, the LSUs apart from the rest of the college football world? Is there something intrinsic, extrinsic? What is it about those programs that set them apart from a preparation standpoint?
Bumpy question, super loaded. So I have like a lot of stuff written down, and I'm just gonna ramble.
Love it.
But,
go for it.
The number one thing at Ohio State, like you de-recruit a kid, right? And I will say this. I mean, and I've been around a lot of programs, right? Ohio State is so special and unique in the fact that our brotherhood at Ohio State is unlike anything else outside of the academies. That is real talk. I mean, like just here in town, you have James Laurinaitis, right? He was my ankle biter when I was playing. You got AJ, you got Bobby, guys that weren't even from here. They all live here now. And everything that we do is trying to add more value to Ohio State, and multi-generational guys that played in the 90s. Archie Griffin, Orlando Place, Joey Galloway, right? He's played for the Cowboys. Like those type of dudes, Kurt Herbstreit, those are all my dudes. That is unique that you have that. And regardless of where you are in life, like you can call upon that. So I think that's why you're seeing Ohio State right now, like do so well in recruiting. You don't have to go on campus to understand what Ohio State all is about. It's about the dudes, right? More so than it is the Blocko or the brand. It's about the dudes, right? That have done it before and will always be there for you. So number one, when you come in, you get de-recruited. 2, you get engulfed into the standard of excellence, which is Ohio State football, right? And that is the culture. It's 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B of competitive excellence. Like that's it. That is the standard. In the weight room, it is accountability, attitude, competitive excellence, effort, and toughness. Those 5 things, period, dot. There are no other things. If you're a coach at Ohio State and you want to throw up your own quote, guess what? You can't do it. You can do it when you're a head duck some other time, but Ohio State, it's the quotes that, you know, Urban Meyer or Ryan Day has up, right? So this is the other thing. They are so good at speaking one language. Language drives change. The more coaches, just like the weight room, right? The more coaches you have in there teaching how they like to squat, the more confused your kids are. Just like if you have a mom that says no video games and you're the fun, yes, dad, right? And you say, oh, you can't have video games. Now there's a conflict, right? Who are we going to listen to? We're going to listen to the guy that lets me do what I want to do. Same thing in the weight room, right? There's one way to squat. It's your way. It's not my way. It's your way, right? There's one way to strike. It's your way. There's one way to watch film. It's your way. So that language drives change in the excellence that's in the program, right? So 1, you have that culture. And then 2, we give them a routine. We teach them how to be a pro, but not only that, they got pro dudes that are already doing it that understand what our entire program is about. And that is the 10-80-10 rule, right? So 10, 8, 10, right? 10 elite, 80 in the middle, 10 at the bottom. That's the low GSF, right? Give an it factor, add a couple of letters in front of that, right? Low GSF, disinterested group. So in order to have a elite championship team, you probably have to have 40 to 50 dudes in the top 10. How do they get that? Well, the top 10 got to go into the 80. The coaches got to create friction and conflict to rise up people in the middle 80, right? When we won a national championship in 2014, we probably had 40 to 50 dudes in the top 10. That's how you have an elite team. But the kids see that, they know it. It's on the board. It's evident. Their position coach sees it. And it's all based on academics and athletics, period. So do they go to class? And I'm not saying athletics or academics in the point of a 3.0. Every kid is different, right? Is that kid maximizing himself in the classroom? Because some kids are a 2.7, right? So we should reward that 2.7. Some kids are 4.0. You should reward that 4.0, not a 3.7, right? So it is always up. It is always very, very visible, right? Everything that we promote is visible. So if competitive excellence is important to you, right, which it is at Ohio State, people that don't go 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B, are a loafer. And we hold our kids accountable to call out the loafs. And if you don't call out a loafer, then you get a loaf, right? Because you lost all accountability. Same thing with coaching loaded stances. Loaded stances are important, and we coach it from January to December all the time. Why? In a game of inches, you can't have false steps. So we coach the crap out of it, right? Back to the routine, then we give them a routine. And the routine is this. Here's your academic schedule. We hold you accountable as you go through meritocracy. You do what you're supposed to do. You're performing at a high level. Some of the things of how we check on you get reduced, right? Grown men type stuff, So we're training them to be a grown man academically, but also when you come into the training room, are you meeting the time that you're supposed to be getting treatment? Are you doing the recovery protocols that we teach you? Our kids know how to do a Novathor bed, a float tank, a contrast bath, because they understand how important it is for them maximizing their genetic potential on Saturdays. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's 100% about how you perform on Fridays or Saturdays or Sundays, right? How are you working on your routine? In Ohio State's indoor, there are all 9 position groups, and everybody has a checklist how to maximize their genetic potential, their routine. So when they're in there on their own, they are doing the routine that is on the board because it's prescribed with a purpose by the position coach for the position group, right? So there is no guessing. It's not like we're going out there and just running routes to, again, confuse activity with achievement. No, we're going out there doing what the coach has prescribed me to do so I can be elite at my position, right? So we give them that routine. And I think that is so critical in what separates the elite of the elites from the all you others, right? The other thing I'm going to mention about Ohio State that I really like that Coach Day has kind of done is he teaches the concepts and the why of the game of football. And I think when you teach the kids the concept of cover 3, cover 6, quarter half, cover 2, etc., right? They have a significantly better understanding of the strengths and weaknesses, why you're calling it, and it allows the kid to come off the field and communicate exactly what they're seeing, which allows you, the coach, to make on-field adjustments significantly faster. And then they, because they understand the concepts and the why, are able to go out and execute that significantly more quickly than somebody that doesn't, right? So summation of all that, boom. That's what I think makes Ohio State and those elite programs elite.
And you hear a lot of guys say this, but there's 100 ways to skin a cat, and at the end of the day, there's these consistencies in culture or programs or franchises that the successful ones meet these certain criteria. And when you see programs or franchises fall short of that, it's because although the attempt may have been there, but the consistency to follow through with that initial attempt, right, is kind of like what Inky Johnson says, is like, are you still willing to put in the work it takes to get there long after the mindset in which you set the goal has left, right? When it starts to get hard, are you willing to still check every box on the list? And that's where you see, I think, the big separation from, from a program franchise standpoint, that 80-10 of that 10% is made up of those guys that continue to check the box, that continue to, when it sucks, when something happens, when we're down to our third string quarterback in the playoffs, when these things that, when the unexpected happens and the plan goes awry because you got hit in the mouth, like Mike Tyson said, are you willing to continue to stick to the process and stick to the plan and stay committed to the things that help build the culture and cultivate those programs of success?
Yeah, and I think Coach Meyer said this a long time ago. Average leaders have quotes, good leaders have a plan, great coaches have a system, right? And that's really what it is, right? Are you, the head coach, sold on your system? You know what I'm saying? And I think we're really what has separated, like even Ryan Day here in Ohio State, and I can talk to that, is he knows himself so well as a staff. He has brought in friction for himself. Like if you really think about his staff, right? Offensively, you have Kevin Wilson, former head coach, offensive coordinator. You have Brian Hartline, young up and coming guy. You have Tony Alford, great recruiter, great running back coach, long in the tooth. Greg or Coach Stud, right? 30 years experience in the offensive line. There are so many different people that are creating friction for him to ultimately, at the end of the day, have the very best offense, but it fits within the system, but is also adaptable to the talent and the skill set that we possess, right? So I think all of those things kind of come together in forming what these these great programs have in common. But again, it is easy for people to want to go over and pick and pull this and pick and pull this because they don't know what their system is, right? And that's the beauty of yourself, Travis, being a young coach. You can kind of go out and look at what are the things that you want to have while also playing or coaching for a great coach, Coach Elliott, as to what makes Salina successful. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, if you don't own it yourself, nobody else is going to be buying it, right? Because that goes into the authenticity of who you are as the leader. You know what I'm saying?
100%, 100%. And that's something that, when I'm playing, it's, I'm too blinder, short term, like focused to start to see that picture. So it's really been one of those things where the things that I take away from my time playing are things that are reflective, or when people ask me questions and I go, man, that was something that was unique and different. Cause at the time it was basically all I knew, right? Your high school program, you get bits and pieces, but kind of like our kids now, they're 16, 17-year-old. You got a 7-second attention span. So what you remember is limited. So trying to stay reflective and big picture on where I've been, programs that I've been associated with. And like you said, pick, choose, take away from what I can, and really start to build the brand and the characteristics of the program that I eventually am hopeful to lead. Heath, who is in our chat, he's a coach from Australia, coaches American football down there, but he just wanted to let you know that he thinks he's going to go ahead and get "Don't confuse activity with achievement" tattooed on him, so that way he never forgets it. And then Roy wanted to ask you, how many leaders or top 10 percenters come from the weight room in the off season? How many of those guys separate themselves from that 80 into that 10 through the weight room or the off season process?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Mick on his right above his door, it says the best players have to be the best workers or the hardest workers, right? And we also have a board of a meritocracy that shows like the playing of every kid on the team, like in the weight room, right? And to be able to be a guy, I'll put it this way: Justin Fields comes into Ohio State, nobody really knew him. You go through the trials and tribulations of Ohio State, winter conditioning program. He won a lot of people over, right? The weight room is the great equalizer because you're not necessarily doing ball. People are seeing you in your rawest form, meaning we create the events that lead to friction that make kids have to respond, whether above or below the line, right? So whether it's a sled drag, whether it's a push up right in the middle of the weight room. Like, we don't give our kids cards, right? We tell them what the workout is because human nature, if I'm following a card, understands exactly what I'm doing for that day. Therefore, I want to save up whatever I have to so I can finish strong. But that's not how we want it, right? We want you to spill it at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? It's our job to physiologically build you up, right? For the long haul. So we don't give them those things. We don't tell them what's happening. Plus, you don't tell them what's going to happen in a game. You know what I mean? So if you are constantly training your kids for sudden change, like in the weight room, hey, guess what? Boom, we're going to go run, or we're going to change up this part of our workout. They have to flip the switch mentally, which is the exact same thing of a sudden change in the game of football. Turnover, offense dropped the ball. Again, I speak as a defensive guy, right? You know, offense fumbled the ball on the 25-yard line, short field. Guess what? How do I look at that? Right? Have we trained that? Well, yeah, we trained it in January. You know what I mean? So now I'm looking at, you know what? Just an opportunity for me to go be great. Let's go. Or for our defense to be great. You know,
100%.
You're used to that, right? But you have to build that in to your team. So, yeah, great points. But I mean, that's kind of a little bit of the things that we do that I think really separates Ohio State. And here's the deal: it's all intentional, it's all purposeful. You know, and everybody knows the why as far as the staff.
When I was playing, we did things as far as like training for sudden change, and we did very small doses of that. You know, when you look at the grand scheme, it was definitely intentional and implemented with a purpose. But I've never thought of doing it from a weight room standpoint. That's, you know, and I think a lot of it comes back to the path of least resistance from a coaching standpoint, right? That requires all of your coaches to be on point 24/7. There can be zero hiccup. You're locked into everything that kid is doing, what's been done, what's got to be next. And a lot of times I know I'm guilty of it, that you can look at a weight room program as like, all right, the kids are lifting, you know, we're just here to make sure nobody gets hurt. Kind of let me decompress for the next 20 minutes and just kind of get ready for, you know, next phase, whether we run first or second, you know, or we've got another group coming in. And like you said, that intentional aspect, you remove the opportunity for that decompression, because if we're going to hold the kids accountable from that standpoint, then we have to be accountable, because if we're not there to answer those questions as soon as they finish, you know, last set, last rep to move on, then now we're not being efficient and we're not training with that intent.
Well, I'm gonna add this to it. See, I don't view the weight room as weights, right? I just view weights as the friction apparatus, right, to extract the excellence that is in the kid. You know what I mean? I'll give you a prime example. Joey Bosa never squatted over 365 at Ohio State. Like, who cares about weights? Ryan Shazier, severe scoliosis, never put a bar on his back, right? We found other ways of Billy Price, Pat Elfline, Corey Lindsley, starting centers for Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings, and Billy is the starting guard for the Bengals. Guess what? They all could have squatted 675. Never did it, right? Didn't need to. But we created different friction in their workouts, right? Where there is a drop set on a leg press, right? You're still getting the physiological load that I would get, but I didn't have to blow this kid's back out in order to do so, right? Or to me, the weight room as a coach, right? Because if we're only looking at ball, the greatest way of developing the relationship is not necessarily when we're doing ball, but in the weight room, because that's when you're seeing the kids at their worst all the time. And a relationship built on trust and their demeanor when they come in the door, you as the coach are having a better understanding of the makeup of that kid so that you can evaluate where exactly they are on the 10-80-10. And I tell coaches this all the time: 10-80-10, break down your program. Every coach, do it on their own. Break down the team where they are. Guarantee you, everybody has different 10-80-10s. Why? That's up to you as a room to come together. Why do you see this kid as an 80 and I see this kid as a 10? Why do you see this kid as an 80 and I see this kid as a low, GSF type kid, right? Why? All right. So then what are we going to do building a relationship? Who is the coach that kid responds to? And it might not even be his position coach to help get that kid up to where we need them to be to have an elite team, or who on this board could we pair them with when we make our groups that will help facilitate that growth from that kid. So now we're not just putting it on the ownership of, hey, you're a senior, go grab that kid. No, we're being intentional in everything that we do, right? But that's just my makeup of how I view. And again, that comes with playing ball. It comes from my makeup in strength conditioning in Texas. It's just, how are we developing and maximizing the genetic potential of our student athletes all year?
100%. That intentional friction that you were talking about with Coach Day and the program, just speaking candidly, there's a lot of places, situations, programs, franchises, businesses that the intentional friction is it's avoided at all costs, right? To where we're going to find verbiage or, new concepts of teamwork or anything to where we can skirt around the intentional friction that, where the iron does sharpen the iron, right? Yeah. We're going to try and get around that bridge that's hard to cross in hopes of just getting to the next point and everybody kind of realizes what the process needs to be instead of attacking it head on. That's awesome. But moving forward, so post-playing career, back in Columbus, joined Ohio State as assistant strength conditioning coach. I think that we all know the obvious correlation, right, between playing the game, the strength conditioning background, and things of that nature.
Hey, you were supposed to talk to me about the league. I can't.
I didn't know. I feel like we covered a lot of those things, and
I got to hit this one point.
All right. So they all know. Just so they all know, after your college career, drafted by the Jets, and that transition, because the big reason is I didn't want you to think that I was skirting on the home run at the end of the conversation. But talk to us about the biggest difference between Columbus and the NFL.
All right, just so you guys all know, I don't care if we get to my product. All right. So I'm all about maximizing people through authentic service. Like that's what I do. But I just wanted to drop this thing about the NFL. The NFL is all about fits and you don't get a choice to fit, right? Like they just draft you. And, here's the thing that I messed up on the NFL. And I think it's I tell my 13-year-old this all the time, but I messed up and I didn't shift my identity. And I think we could all relate to this in some kind of aspect, right? So I go to the NFL. I'm a starting linebacker, freshman All-American at the Air Force Academy. I'm a sophomore captain at the Air Force Academy. I'm all conference. I go to Ohio State. I'm a linebacker. We had the best defense in the country in 2005, right? You go to the NFL. Guess what I didn't do? I didn't play special teams at all. So I go to the NFL, and my identity and my mindset as a football player was Anthony Schlegel, linebacker. Now, growing up in Texas, my dad was a high school coach. Like I would introduce myself as Anthony Schlegel, fullback, because Tom Rathman, right? Big traps, flat top. Well, who didn't want big humps and a flat top back then? Like I did, right? But then I watched NFL films and it became Anthony Schlegel, linebacker, because of Dick Butkus. But the problem I had was I didn't shift my identity when I got to the league, and it should have been Anthony Schlegel, the football player, right? And I think this is really critical for as we come back from coronavirus. It is, hey, listen, the identity of everybody on our team right now, we didn't have spring ball. It is input your name, football player. How are you going to add value to this team? Are you going to add value to this team because you're going to be a long snapper and the practice squad, defensive end? Is it that you're going to be starting? Can you give us punt? Right at Ohio State, every starter plays a special team. I think that's unbelievable. Coach Meyer had started that when he got here, and I think it has added a tremendous value to all of our guys. Look at Terry McLaurin. Absolute freak on special teams. Got him an opportunity. Wasn't statistically that great of a wide receiver at Ohio State, right? Played 5 years, goes to the Senior Bowl, absolutely destroys people, 3rd-round draft pick, starting day one, right? But it was because it was Terry McLaurin, the football player. Whatever you want me to do, coach, to add value, that's what I want to do. That's my biggest mistake in my playing career. And I just think it's a really good point from that to where we can articulate to our kids when they come back from COVID is, I don't care where you are, what position you play. What your identity should be, your name, football player, add value, and let's go. All right, next question. Right?
No, 100%. It's you. You're right, because it's as soon as you start talking about, adapting and making the best of that situation, you said, I think we all have that in some aspect. And I immediately connect to that moment in my coaching career where it's like, this is that moment. This is where you didn't do that. And this is how it affected you. And, mine just falls on that general path of, when you're 21, 22, 23 years old, you know absolutely nothing, but you think you know everything. And then the more you learn, the more you realize how little you actually know. So the self-awareness of being at the beginning of that journey is something that hindered me in the beginning of my coaching career. And you're 100% right. It's, I come back to just tag phrases, but it's the adapt or die, right? It's like, if you can't see that awareness, or you can't make that adjustment to your situation, then it's going to have a negative impact you in some way. So moving forward, kind of fast forward through the beginning of the question, the correlation between playing the game and being a strength conditioning coach. We all see it, the vast majority of strength conditioning coaches that I've ever had or been around are all former players in some capacity. But how do you feel your playing career prepared you for everything else that comes with the role of being a strength conditioning coach?
I just saw the importance. I think for me, being a undersized, overachieving linebacker, like that's most of your kids, right? Like, so I had to maximize myself, and I did that in the weight room. Like, I knew I was my fastest when I had my best squat and my best deadlift, right? That added value to me. So, and then also growing up in Texas and training at a Metroflex gym in Arlington, I mean, I saw how I want to train, right? That's how I train. Attitude and intensity of which you train permeates the off season, spring ball, summer conditioning, and the season, right? When I go to practice, is it the same? Like, this is how I tell kids. I was like, you're not just squatting the squat. You're attacking the bar just like you would inside drill, right? How do we do squat? Like, it's me versus bar. It's me versus that offensive lineman, right? Is that my mindset? I can train that all the time, and how I prepare my pre-snap reads and my alignment, assignment, alerts, and adjustment. It's just like I squat, right? Chest up, eyes up, abs tight, set the hips. That's how you squat, right? 5 points of contact on bench. How am I spotting bench, right? All the same things correlate. And I think as a strength coach, we have to teach them and get them to buy in as to, this is why we train, because it is just like you're training in football. So don't just go through the motions of, oh yeah, we're in the weight room. It's no, I'm holding my teammate accountable. I'm doing great reps. I got to have great reps on the field, right? Like, every rep matters, So that's what I really loved about it. And I love the fact of, the weight room teaches you to embrace the friction, love the process, right? Because it sucks, but you got to love it. Like, I mean, another great lesson of COVID is, if you really love ball, right, you probably were training over this entire time to be prepared for ball, right? And, you love the process that goes into everything that allows you to do the sport that you love to do, right? But it also gives you the confidence to take uncertainty and create an opportunity out of it, right? So all of those things, coming together is, what I really gained from being a football player and able to translate that into the weight room. Plus, my kids, when I was coaching, saw me getting a full-time MBA while I was the associate director. So I'm not a GA. I'm a full-time employee. I'm the number 1 assistant at Ohio State. And I'm taking 3 classes at night after practice while having a wife and 3 kids, and I'm attacking it just like they're attacking it. So, I was doing exactly what I wanted them to do. And, and you also understand all the things that go into ball, and you can be empathetic with them that other people that never really played, they don't have that understanding, right? They don't understand the different moods that come into play. They don't understand the competitive excellence. They don't understand the why we do what we do, at a very high level. So those are the things I gained from it.
100%. It brings like these 2 memories to mind. One, while I was playing, it's such a unique environment to where, it's June, it's 6:30, we're starting conditioning. We suck during stretching, and, nobody's focused, they're dynamic, and kids are, we're coming off a 7-6 season, so we think we're on top of the world, and guys are getting too big for their britches, chirping here and there, and we have 2 D tackles that are 330 pounds plus run 30 yards into a 300, and all of a sudden they're squared up, fist balled, going toe to toe, and you got half the team that saw it as an opportunity to take a break and leave and just like, oh, I'm going to watch this. You got the other half of the team that's like, I can't afford to take this rep off. I'm going to keep running so I don't, get yelled at. And you got every strength coach going, okay, solve the problem. And as soon as all that died down and the emotions go away, Kaz gives us the talk of like, hey, you're stupid, here's why. But the second we go in the weight room, guess who's in the first rack in front of the entire team lifting together? The 2 kids that just got done drawing blood from each other, because that was the environment. Look, you had a dispute. You went into the octagon, and now you're back here getting better, holding each other accountable. And those type of unique situations, like you said, they're not understood by people in other environments who haven't been in those situations. The person that sits in the crowd and says, tackle him. Like, that's not the goal. Like, the kid went out there and went, I lined up out here to not make this play. Right. And the disconnect there is something that I think there's so much value in it. It has so much correlation to every other aspect of life that a lot of people that if they haven't had an intimate relationship with the game, they don't fully understand.
Yep. It's real talk.
So last topic, 2014, won the national championship. You're still working on your MBA when this situation or issue is presented to you, correct?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So Coach Meyer comes and says, hey, here's a problem, solve it. Walk us through that, because it's everything that I tried to find about the genesis of Difference USA and your transition out of Ohio State. Everything I tried to find, there's not a lot of detail on this aspect. All I could get was that it was the off season. He had a problem. He asked you and another coach, I think, to solve it. And then we jumped straight to, the business aspect. But walk us through that process.
Well, I mean, it was really that fast, right? So, I went back to get an MBA at Ohio State. One, Mickey Marotti, our head strength coach, was like, listen, I've been a coach now for 2 seasons. I'd had multiple job offers my first and second year to go be a head strength coach in college football. And I'm like, yeah, I want to go run my own show. He's like, no, you need to go get a master's degree because that's where the industry is going. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go do it. And so I go through and I'm like, all right, do I get a sports admin, right? 1-year program, or do I go get an MBA? And I actually just saw the strength game in college football just changing very, very rapidly. And I view the head football coach, the CEO of Ohio State Football LLC, right? RAD, Gene Smith. He's the CEO of Ohio State Incorporated, right? Well, therefore, me as a strength coach, I'm the chief operating officer, right? It's why I became a strength coach. I didn't want to recruit. I wanted to be around the kids 24/7. So I needed more skills and tools in my toolbox that I could only get by going to an MBA program. And so, so now we win a national championship, and Chris Ash implemented a drill called the Difference. It was basically a striking drill, and Chris Ash had all this stuff in the offseason in 2014 of just film study of elbows in, thumbs up, inside hands win. And he brought this to our kids. And it was a fundamental of our program, just like loaded stances. Striking was a fundamental of the Ohio State University Buckeyes. And after we won the national championship, he said, listen, we were elite in 2 areas, loaded stances and the difference, striking, right? So now he wanted to work on that same drill in our offseason conditioning program. So in college football, you get guys for 8 hours a week. The coaches can touch them for 1 hour, right? So on our running days, they would get them for 30 minutes at a time, 2 days a week, right? On our team run days. And so what we did was, hey, Schlegel, we want to work on this. What are we going to do? I'm like, I'm a hillbilly. I hog hunted. I, weld some stuff. I cut 45 2x6s, and we came up with drills, and a guy would hold it, right? He'd hit me 5 times. He'd take it because you can't use pads, right? NCAA violations, right? So he would hit me 5 times. I give it to him. I'd hit him 5 times. We probably do that twice. Each guy got 10 reps. Then I just saw all these dudes throwing the boards right all over the place. So now I got to look at, all right, does each position group have enough boards? Are they not going to get injured? Right. And I just started looking at these things, at this problem through a different prism, right? Just a different lens. And I noticed that all the things that we have for striking, one, I couldn't do them because they were on the field or a football piece of equipment. And two, the customer always had to have a partner or go out to them. Well, just like any type of marketing, you got to put the stuff right in front of your student athlete because that's how they use it, right? Like if your nutrition room is on the other side of the building, guess how many kids are going to go to the nutrition room? They're only going to go there unless you're checking them off.
Exactly.
Right. So you got to put it right on their like right in the flow of their entry and exit. Right. Like that's it. It's either in the weight room or it's as they go to their car or come from their car. Right. Like logistically, that's how all rooms are made up in Division I college football. So I'm like, you know what? I want to work on my craft, kind of like the theory of marginal gains. The whole premise was, how do I get kids 5,000 reps of striking with our language all year? You know, and therefore Hillbilly kicked in and we took a dip bar off a power lift rack, 2 pieces of angle iron, a 70-pound Toro lawnmower spring, a 2-inch square tube, and a 2x6 wrapped in carpet. I stuck it on my weight rack, and I saw Pat Elfline transition from guard to center that year because Corey Lindsley just got drafted. And after our workout, went over there, and it was a way I was trying to, for my guys, because I always handled the bottom 10. All right, like that was my Schlegel, you got the bottom 10. Here's your dudes, right? I wanted to incorporate ball with them, right? A little bit more engagement. Well, then I saw Pat use it, and he would just do an air snap and a punch, 20 right, 20 left, grabbed a protein shake, went to the training room. I'm like, dude, that's 40 reps the dude just got that he would never have gotten. I just added value, right? And that was it. And I had that idea. And again, there's not a lot to it. It's all gas, no brakes. It's a strength coach and a football coach mentality. You know what I mean? It was, all right, my wife and I made a decision. I didn't want to chase the dragon. We win a national championship. Of course, you're going to have opportunities to go be a head strength coach. You're the number 1 assistant at Ohio State. Like, that's what happens. But we're like, you know what? We don't want to necessarily chase the dragon moving around. I'm from Dallas. I played in Columbus, Ohio. Guess what? Those are the 2 areas that we want to live in. And we got convicted. She still thinks it's the stupidest idea of all time. But yeah, we're going to plant the flag and go and start a company. And literally, I started it in August of 2015. I resigned in May of 15, and I started a company August of 15. And I started selling product in December of 15. Like, that's how fast it went. You know? And I mean, again, it's the whole thing. Plant the flag and go. I mean, I still got people out there using my original beta product that still work. And then, you know, the product is never, ever going to be there because I'm a coach. Like, I'm always trying to maximize it and tweak it to get full utility. But that's what we do, you know? And so then, you know, over the last 4 years, I mean, we're in 24 and growing, right? Because it's COVID we got them. It's just like we're spending free. So I don't ever count them until I get their money. But, you know, we're in 24 NFL teams and 88 Division I colleges, right? Like, you know, and I really haven't even touched the high school market because my whole premise was if I validate it in the elite of the elite and they use it, it will permeate its way down.
100%.
You know? And I'm a one-man band. I still assemble every single machine and sell it and do the books. And I got my dude Roy down there that sells it with me. And that was a huge blessing in itself. But, you know, like that's been the maturation progress of the product. And now we're adding other things. But at the end of the day, it's all about maximizing coaches and players. Like that's all I care about, you know? And if I can do that, I'm good.
100%. And it kind of goes back to, you know, my brief stint in the business world, because that is what my actual degree is in. But it's, you know, you fulfilled a market that nobody knew existed, right? It's, you know, here's a problem that I know I can vividly see here, and I guarantee you that when presented in the right way, that other people will agree, yes, this is going to streamline our process and it's going to maximize our efficiency, right? But at no point in time in 2013 was somebody sitting there going, man, if we just had like a punch pad that went in our weight room and then our guys could get thousands of more reps in the offseason, right? Nobody's thinking that way because nobody had ever thought that way. But it, solving the issue that nobody knew existed created this market for a device that, he said he hasn't tapped into the high school market. Thankfully, Salina has them because, we had to. Thanks, Roy. But I'm super excited just to watch the kids use them because, the things I've been able to see online and like you said, just the number of repetitions you can get in a smaller amount of time and not having to worry about, space and number of kids and we have this sled for this and this sled for this, but right, this is just, it's right there. You finish your workout, don't forget 40 reps difference before you leave. And then it's that efficiency and availability that we're always trying to find with time limitations. So
that's where it's like to your point, it's your language, right? And again, DBs aren't hitting 5-man sleds, right? Wide receivers aren't stock blocking on 5-man sleds. You got to get something that they can use. But again, you want it to be your language, right? Hey, this is how we do cover 2 or press man. Here's the drill that you work on it with, right? Your language all the time, just like you squat, just like you bench. Because at the end of the day, when they go to the field and they've already struck it 3,000 times, they've already been able to add value, which takes less time for you doing those drills in individual period and more time maximizing your time talking about alignment, assignment, alerts, and adjustments, right? Which is ball,
100%.
So many different other aspects to it.
Yeah. We could go for days about it. The last thing, and I had it teed up and it went away, but we have to talk about the body slam of all body slams. So just kind of, as I get the clip pulled up, set the tone, game, opponent, it just situation in the game, let everybody know what it is that they're about to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is 2014 national championship season. We just got beat at home by Va Tech, right? A very average team. And again, remember, we're starting our second string quarterback because Braxton Miller went out. And also got to remember, I'm getting a full-time MBA, right? So I haven't seen my family all week. I've been taking class. And I have the absolute worst job in all of college football, okay? There's two awful jobs in college football. And guess who owns them? The strength coach, right? Number 2 worst job in all of football is the get back coach. Awful job.
It's the worst.
Awful. All right. Number 1 worst job is the strength coach responsible for the special team substitution. If you think about the stupidity that goes into that job given to a strength coach who, guess what, is not in the special teams meetings, right? Has no authority if a kid is not out there, right? To hold him out of plays, right? But yet he has all of the responsibility for making sure that every kid is out there, and all the coaches want to make up 45 different pump blocks and different pump block packages, and they're all a different color. You know what I'm saying? And so now I got 30 kids I got to look for, right? That's how this play happened. So it was actually second down. We were on offense. I'm so paranoid because I don't want to get my face melted off by Urban Meyer that I'm looking to see if my offensive guys that are on punt are on the field. Just want to know. Right. So I count them up. There's 3 of them. Guess what? They're on the field. And then this happened.
So as I share the screen, there was the odd thing to me is that after this, we start to see, can you see that, Coach?
Oh yeah, I got it.
So there was like a small part of the internet that started talking about like, will he face legal action? It's like, no, the kid was trespassing. Like, I don't even know why this is a conversation, but anyway, just to play the clip in all of its glory.
Oh, it's beautiful. Look, he's smiling. He's so happy. You know what? I'm actually happy that guy was holding on to him because I would have face planted him into the ground.
Yes,
You know,
and
so we can break this down. All I know is this.
oh, let me
All
pull it
right.
back up real quick.
Yeah. So you're perfect. So I'm out there in khakis. One, why are strength coaches wearing khakis? You know what I mean? And they give you the worst shoes, like some Air Pegasus shoes. Right? Go out there, and I got some like low-fitting socks on. I got my depth chart of my special team that was like 6 pages deep. The good thing is shoulders over knees, knees over toes, reverse arc, right? And the guy, people don't think about this either. It's not like I, as a strength coach, dream about this, right? I'm getting enough. I have to see my kids all week, right? The other thing is nobody else ran out there. And what happens if this dude juked an NFL linebacker out in a pair of Sperry's?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't think about that. So 2 funny side notes. When this happened, I was standing next to our head strength coach, Mickey Marotti, and I swear he gave me the eyebrow. You know what I mean? Kind of like, like, what are you going to do about it?
Like, are you going to solve this problem now?
Yeah, I mean, I was a state champion wrestler in Texas. Like, I know how to lateral drop somebody, right? I play linebacker at the highest level. Like, I think I could do it. So it didn't take much for me to flip that switch. And then you can't see it right there, but there was a guy over there to the right. That dude was so hard for me to train. I kid you not, after I did this, he was phenomenal. So it was beneficial in multiple facets.
100%. No, it's the thing I love about it though is that like there's no way that anybody watches this and they're like, man, I should really challenge that guy. Right? It eliminates all doubt. Like this wins every argument, right, for any kid. And it was so public that, I mean, it's on YouTube. It's got 8 million views. It's timeless, right? I'm listening to strength coaches that like when freshmen come in and the freshmen walk to the, oh no, they couldn't see it. Uh-oh, hold on. We got to run it back now. That's okay. I think I know why. Let me do this. All right. I'll run that while I finish talking. But I'm listening to coaches, freshmen come into a program and like they go to the locker room. Oh, I'm not drinking that post-workout shake. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. Right. But they're all doing it in the safety and the protection of the locker room, right? Where they think that, no coach ever goes, especially a strength coach. And so hearing him have to solve those issues, on his own, like post-workout, like, hey, we got boxing gloves right here. You think you're a tough guy. You're a 154-pound 18-year-old. Let's go. But now, Coach Schlegel's got it on YouTube to where if anybody even looks at him wrong, he just like whips it up on his iPhone and goes, just remember, boys, just remember.
Yeah, we believe in Ohio State and forceful adaptation, right? You've heard the thing, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I completely disagree with that. You grab the back of their neck, right? The fur on the back of their neck, and you shove their face into the water, right? And it will go through their nose and they'll get some in their mouth, but they will drink. But also you eliminate them from even having to go into the locker room, right? Like I will watch you drink that right now, period. And you're not leaving until you do it in front of me.
Oh, trust me.
So,
that was step 2 is after the confrontation. Then it was, no, your bottle was filled and you do not go to the locker room until it's empty. It's handed back to the assistant strength coach to be washed out and filled for pre-workout tomorrow. You have your take-home bottle to take to class. Make sure you hydrate. Right. So the forceful adaptation came, but I just love that you don't even have to forcefully adapt. You just have to turn on a TV in the weight room and be like, just remember, fellas, just remember. But I do love the fact that, again, when we pause the clip, no false step, right? Loaded stance. Everything was right there. The kid's trying to cut off his inside foot, and everybody knows that that's just physiologically impossible, right? But Coach, I really appreciate it. This was awesome. Like I said, I'm excited to see our kids begin to use the difference. Roy gave me a heads up that you would bring the juice and he was not exaggerating. If anything, he undersold it and it was awesome. And if anybody watching or listening isn't just amped to go work out or hit a pad, like hit a sled, something, then they need to check their pulse. But nobody really has any other questions in the chat. And, I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Roy, thank you for setting this up, bro.
And I will definitely be in touch because I'm gonna have some more questions about either application of the product or I just want to hear war stories because you've had a very, very intense and entertaining life that's got a lot of knowledge.
Awesome, man. Hey, open door, bro.
Well, thanks very much, Coach. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Have a good one.